Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Zero to Play podcast. I'm your host, Carla Duke, and today I'm joined by Phid McAwesome. Phid is the Business Development Manager of Ggwp Academy, a platform to help gamers with resources and courses in monetization, content creation, and more. He's a keen gamer with an entrepreneurial spirit, being the co-founder of gaming news platform GoTo.game, creator of an award-winning podcast show, #Radio, and many other ventures too. Today, we're going to talk about the current state of streaming in Australasia, how streaming has evolved as a viable industry and what it might become, and advice for aspiring streamers wanting to get into this space. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 7 of season 2 of the Zero to Play podcast. Welcome, Phid. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Carl. Awesome to be here, man.
I really appreciate it. It's my lunch break at the moment, so I apologize if there's some background noise that's in the background. But just know, we're vibing. We're in an active environment right now.
Hey, not a problem. It's breakfast time for me here in Sydney, so I've got my coffee.
And I love the t-shirt, your cheer t-shirt that you're wearing, and your WWGP hat. We're going to get into all of that. It's really doing research on you. I think one first question, it's a bit of a goof of a question, but one question I had was, you have a clear collection of snapback hats, and I wanted to know if you could only keep 2 hats that you have, which 2 would those be?
Oh, what would my 2 hats be? Well, I'm going to be the good brand manager and say the first one would be my GGWP hat I'm currently wearing.
Yep. And the other
one? Actually, the other one that I've had in constant rotation for about 2 years. So look, it's a 2-year-old hat. It doesn't smell good. But there's actually the Borderlands 3 Mayhem hat, and I just think it's because it's a really dope design. That one, it's just a bold Mayhem along the front with the Borderlands one on the side. And I got it from when they did the launch. A really good mate of mine works at 2K, and he knew that I'm a snapback guy, so he sent it.
I love it. I think we could do a whole episode just on going through your different snapbacks and the stories behind them. But we'll leave it at just that for now. So thank you so much for joining me today. I think you are going to bring a really interesting perspective for streamers and just the online gaming community. So just a few months ago, you launched a new business called Ggwp Academy. I kind of want to just hear your vision as to what this company means to you and what problem you think it's solving in the current streaming market.
All right, so just to clarify on that, I personally didn't launch Ggwp. It was launched by Jackie Garrett. She was the visionary of this a few years ago, and me and Jackie have known each other for a few years. First time I actually met her was actually after a panel that I did at PAX, and she came up and made herself known to me. I actually already knew who her son was, funnily enough.
Crazy.
Because her son was one of the youngest esports guys in Australia at the time. He had a super cool social presence. And because he was young, that was his mother that was running all that. And I got to meet her, and we've been mates ever since.
Nice.
And she'd sort of come to me with this idea of a business, and I was like, it's an interesting idea. I think it needs some work, but definitely worth something pursuing. And then, strangely enough, I think it's like 3.5 years later, here I am working for that very company that she started.
Crazy.
So what the company is, or where it started, is it's a educational platform for aspiring content creators. So if you're a fan of Twitch or Facebook gaming or YouTube and want to become one of those people you watch, you're wanting to join the massive pool globally of content creators, it's probably the best place to start, because it starts with those basic fundamentals of how do I become a content creator? What do I need to know? What do I need to look at when it comes to my personal brand? What is it? hardware do I need to look at? How do I make the person that I am look the best I can online as a content creator? So that's the fundamental starting of it. But then it's also a great platform for someone who's already a content creator and wants to take their career to the next level. So, you might be a content creator who's been streaming for 2 years. You've got a solid community there, but you've never engaged brands, you've never worked with on sponsorships or anything like that. And you're like, how do I take myself to that next level? Perfect place for it, because there's a whole raft of courses available on the app for all of that.
That's awesome.
So there's basically where it is now. Amazing concept. Somebody who's worked with content creators for years now, I see it being an amazing tool, and it's something that I've personally loved doing, is working one-on-one with content creators, helping them build their brand. Some of the biggest names in Australia and New Zealand content creation scene now were guys that I started working with when they'd only been on Twitch for 6 months, and now they're making thousands of dollars a year by turning on their webcam and playing video games and communicating with their audience in a really natural way. And so it's something that I've personally already had a passion for. So being able to come across to Ggwp and help build out that community and build the business around the core fundamentals of becoming a better content creator.
Totally.
I mean, it's something that's been absolutely awesome.
It's incredible to see just how much streaming every year on year streaming is growing incredibly as a viable career path, and just like companies like Ggwp, it's the kind of infrastructure for that industry that hasn't existed yet. I mean, streaming is still so young, but it's getting to the stage now where there's so much money to be made and opportunity. And I'm sure if you go to most schools at the moment, you go, what kind of career path would you like to be? The most common answer, I think, is a YouTuber. And then the second or third is probably a streamer or a gamer.
And that's exactly it, right? And so there's already a massive amount of people that are looking at doing this, but this is where if a teenager comes home from school and goes, Mum, I want to be a YouTuber, we've got the tools to be able to help Mum as well. Mum can do the app, or Dad can do the app, and learn about what the industry is like to help their kid actually pursue this career and actually find out that, yes, it is a absolutely valid career.
Totally. I kind of wonder, because I'm 27 now. When I grew up in high school, like 10 years ago, I was a huge gamer, and I was very interested in social media and YouTube at that time. I wanted to be a YouTuber. I didn't really know how to put that energy into something. There wasn't that infrastructure. There wasn't a connection between my parents and I on that interest of mine. So it's really interesting trying to think of how I might handle the current state of of streaming and gaming if I was to grow up in this time.
I think about this all the time. See, I've got just over 10 years on you, mate. So when I grew up in high school, we didn't even have an avenue of where video games could take us unless you were going to be making video games, right? So in my day, it was, God, I sound like an old man. In my day. But it was, if literally our parents looked at video games, like that's the thing that my kid does when they get home from school, whatever. There is literally nothing but them, there's no career beyond them playing video games in the bedroom or taking over mum and dad's TV. Where it's come to now, I think is absolutely amazing. But one thing I did want to touch on is you did ask the question about what the vision is going forward.
Yeah.
And this is where I come in with being brought on with Ggwp as business development manager, is I'm helping build up that next phase of what Ggwp is, and that actually is how to monetize yourself as a content creator.
Cool.
So the next phase of the business is, and this is going to be rolling out over the next couple of months, there's no secret, so I'm not spilling the beans here, but the next phase is actually the Ggwp Marketplace.
Cool.
Which basically people that come through the Ggwp Academy, once you've gotten through, you've learned everything you can learn, you get funneled through into the marketplace. And even if you're already an established content creator, you can contact us and we'll basically put you straight into the marketplace. And it's an awesome piece of software that's being built that helps connect content creators with brands. And the dope part of this is basically if you come through the course and get put through, it brings all that data over for everything you've learnt, but also plugs in your Twitch account, your YouTube account, your Facebook gaming account, your Twitter account, your Instagram account. All of that stuff is connected into it, and basically ranks you as a content creator based on everything you've learnt, all of your content that you create, like the engagement you get, the following you've got across all of those platforms, and basically puts a score against you, which brands are then able to come into the app. They can create campaigns, marketing campaigns, whether that's a sponsorship, whether that's a ongoing thing, whether it's a one-off marketing campaign, and basically they put all their details in, put in the campaign they're wanting to do, and you as a content creator can then connect with that brand and work directly with them, which is awesome. It cuts out the middleman of having to deal with going out and finding PR contacts and meeting people at the companies to work with them, and that whole game of cat and mouse that is, trying to establish a relationship with a brand. It completely cuts all that work out, where it all just happens in the Ggwp Marketplace. An amazing concept to me. It's actually what brought me over when it was pitched to me, was the fact that, to me, this is going to disrupt the way things are currently done and make life so much easier for content creators and for brands that want to engage the gaming audience potentially for the first time, because that's a big thing that we're seeing now is, well, we're starting to see it, right? So in my previous role, I worked with non-gaming brands a lot, and we're starting to see that more, and that's predominantly down to the effects of the pandemic. The pandemic was really good for our industry. We're one of the few industries that literally can look at the last 12 months and go, that was good for us. Horrible for the rest of the world, but it was good for our industry.
Yeah, we won't celebrate it for too long. But within, very quickly, it's been good for gaming. And I completely understand that. What I think is interesting about gaming, so ad revenues are another common stream of income for online creators, whether it's through YouTube or Twitch, etc. But having that direct connection with brands, I think, is really powerful and creates kind of new experiences. Can you give like an example of a type of activation or campaign that would happen through Ggwp, and how that would differ from, I suppose it would save the middleman and finding that actual client. But could you just explain what a kind of connection might be made between a certain brand and a certain streamer?
Yeah, well, look, this is where it gets a bit interesting. Is I'm a big proponent that a content creator should not work with a brand that they don't have either a personal connection to, or a personal affinity to, or even if you don't have an affinity with the brand, at least that product needs to be something that connects with you, and so that what you're doing as a content creator is 100% honest, right? You don't want to be that content creator that's called out for doing a campaign with someone that you talked shit about 12 months ago. Yeah, and it does happen. So being able to connect directly with that brand, you're able to basically start that conversation of, or even if the brand is the one starting the conversation, they're the one to approach them and say, hey, we've got this campaign. We want you to use our product for the next 6 months. We want you to flick a couple of tweets out a month. We want you to have our brand on screen. We want you to have it in shot behind you in the video, all that sort of thing. You're able to then go, okay, maybe there's a more creative way of doing this. Maybe I can actually create some content around this, start a series around it, get super creative, and you can work directly with the brand on that.
Yeah. This is a question that I don't know if it has a solid answer, but for me, someone who works in production, I like hard numbers and data. And my question is, do you know roughly what size a streamer would need to be in order to consider doing it full time? Like, is there like a certain amount of subscribers that you think is like a safe number that would make a streamer consider doing it full time?
This changes from content creator to content creator,
Yeah.
right? So there is no one answer for that.
Yeah.
But what I would say is it all comes down to what is your cost of living,
Yeah.
right? So if you're at a point where you are making enough money to be able to pay your rent, pay your bills, you're not eating hand to mouth off that, you're living hand to mouth on that money, then you're probably at a stage where you can look at going, okay, I don't need my day job anymore.
Mm.
I can earn enough from this to be able to dedicate myself 100% to it. And that's when actually you see that grow to from it being enough to being able to make a solid career out of it, because you're no longer um, only doing it part time. You're able to go, okay, once upon a time I streamed 3 hours a night every night for 5 weeks
Mm.
or whatever.
Yeah.
You can then go, okay, now I can start making this my day job. I can
Yeah.
get up at 9 o'clock, turn on stream at 10, stream through to 6 p.m. in the afternoon.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend that for everybody. That's not everybody's cup of tea, right? But it is something where I've seen that exact model work, where somebody would stream for 5 days a week and they would do a solid 9-10 hour day on
Yeah.
stream. Um, and that content creator is now one of the biggest content creators in Australia, and it's because he put that work in. But he had to wait until he got himself to a point where he could pay his bills.
Yeah.
So basically, that's the math behind it, right? Can I pay the
Yeah.
bills?
Yeah, one question I have is do you think so as someone who's freelanced in the past, I struggled with that lifestyle because you're taking every month as it comes to try find new clients.
Yeah.
And what I think would really help, and this is my question is there a trend of more brands committing to like a 1 year partnership with a streamer or something that's longer term than just one ad or like one Twitter post or 1 month of work, but it's actually like a full year of commitment?
Look, I would say at the moment we're starting to see things head actually in the other direction, which is
Hmm.
a shame because it's more because what we're seeing is brands basically coming in, dipping their toes in the market and
Yeah.
giving it a go. We always push, and even in my previous job, I've always pushed for those long-term agreements because it helps the brand because you're not just popping in and popping out, you're becoming a part of the gaming industry.
Yeah.
And that is super important, right? You need to not be seen as somebody that's coming in, taking advantage of the industry and buggering off, because the gaming community can be quite cynical as well towards that.
Hmm.
Or the gaming community, sorry, not so much the industry, but the community of fans and followers and stuff. They will see through you if you are not coming in to be a part of the industry.
Yeah.
But also, it's just better for the content creators as well, right? Because they're then able to go, okay, for the next 12 months, I know I've got this
Yeah.
coming into the bank. I can rely on that and build upon it.
Yeah. Is there like is GGWP offering tiers of kind of different types of sponsorship, or is it very much reliant on the brand coming up with whatever model and price point that they want? Are you guys kind of establishing that standard in any way?
What we're trying to actually bring in is a bit of standardization to some of that pricing, because currently it is a bit of a wild west situation when it comes
Mm.
to one, the brands, and the other one is agencies who, they do sort of, it fluctuates, right?
Mm.
But that does also come down to what the brand's budgets are. Like some of these budgets are handed down from a global level. They have zero say here in ANZ or in any other region.
Mm.
It's just here's some money. This is all you've got to work with for the next year. So sometimes the brand managers or marketing managers just cannot work to a longer term thing.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the answer to that is yes, we're trying to bring a lot more standardization, but we also have to be flexible. And this is something that content creators need to realize as well. Is they need to be a bit flexible when it comes to that too. I've always sort of said to people, look, don't undersell yourself. Don't take a free job for the sake of taking a free job just to get that brand or whatever. But at the same time, you do also have to do a bit of maths on that as well. Like maybe the product that you're getting as well as the payment is going to help with your content creation. So for example, a PC company, if they're going to come on board and say, hey, we're going to sponsor you for the next 12 months, we can't pay you $1,000 a month for your stream, but what we are going to provide you with is up to $6,000 worth of PC hardware. So taking that into account, it's like, oh shit, that hardware is actually going to help me do my job. And it's hardware that I would have had to take money out of my bank account to pay for it in any other situation. So doing that sort of maths, or the other thing is it might just be a brand you're super passionate about, right? You just really want to be involved in that brand. So, you know, in that situation, it might be something where you go, look, I love the brand. I'm already paying for it. It's worth me getting a relationship with them so that I can closely associate myself with that brand. So different equations.
It's a case by case basis.
It definitely is.
Yeah. One question I had, which is kind of part of a wider conversation I like to have with guests in the gaming space, is just how do you, and I think this would be interesting coming from your perspective, how are you categorizing the different gaming categories? So I think esports, when it comes to streaming, is its own category.
100% it's its own category.
Yeah. So are there any other categories in streaming that you're consciously kind of making decisions around?
So sort of, yeah. So esports, I love that you pinpoint that one in particular, because the amount of brands that come to us and say, hey, I want to get involved in esports. And we're like, okay, how do you want to get involved in esports? Oh, well, we want to get some streamers. Okay, so you're having a conversation about something completely different. That's not esports, that's content creation. So esports definitely stands on its own, but within content creators, we do roughly categorize. I mean, we can get very granular and say this person is a Beat Saber content creator, or this person is a Doom content creator. But the broader side of things, you've got, we do categorize people by their platform. So lately, for example, in the last year and a half, you know, TikTok is definitely its own category. There are people that are Twitch streamers that are bigger on TikTok than they are on Twitch. Twitch is where they create their content, but where they get the most engagement is by cutting out the funny bits and putting that on TikTok.
Crazy.
So, and there's a whole different conversation about where TikTok can lead to as well, because we've seen some amazing success stories come out of TikTok.
Wow.
But then there's, I would say, within the gaming categories, you've definitely got esports being one. Variety, I categorize on its own. So it's those people that play everything and anything. Whatever game that they want to play this week is the game they're going to play this week. And usually they jump to the newest games or the most popular games. But there are some ones that just play the games they love. Then you've got people that are very niche, which I would say, you know, they're a dedicated ex-gamer, whatever game that is. And then you have just got IRL sort of other category, which is IRL, music, creative, and then you go and get somebody like a Rudism, right? A good friend of mine, love the guy to death, but he sort of sits in between. You know, he's a creator as well as a maker, so he fits in sort of two sort of categories.
Yeah, totally. I think the whole other category is an interesting question that I want to ask. Do you see streaming becoming popular in terms of people showing behind the scenes of their process of making stuff? I suppose that is the kind of maker creator category, but I'm just curious if people that aren't necessarily wanting to be content creators, I guess, putting their face on and creating entertainment, but they're more just wanting to document their process of the art that they're creating, whether that's writing a novel, making a song, making a movie. Is that a whole category?
That is definitely a whole category. A friend of mine from a previous job, he has sat down and watched people build websites on WordPress on Twitch. right?
Yeah.
And he loved it because he was able to talk to this guy and work out problems he was having with his own WordPress website. There are people out there that create music live on Twitch, and that's something that we've worked with actual people that are signed to record labels to say, hey, this is a whole new avenue for you. You know, while you're in that creative process, why don't you stream that? Talk to your audience, build your audience, so that when that song comes out, that audience is able to say, oh, I remember when he found that beat. I remember when he came up with that. You know, things like that.
Totally.
So yeah, the maker category, or maker categories, because they've sort of made it a bit more granular now, where it's music and making and arts and crafts and baking and things like that. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's an area that's going to make a lot more people consider streaming that aren't necessarily growing up through
Yeah.
in this entertainment.
Oh, look,
line.
and even it's a great avenue for people that are gaming content creators to sort of put another side of themselves out there as well. Like I've seen, or the industry has seen people that play games for 5 nights a week, and then on a Saturday night will do like a book club.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where they literally are sitting there reading a book with their audience.
Yeah.
Or content creators like Littles over the weekend, you know, doing a baking stream where she was making one of the Bob Ross emojis into a cake, you know, things like that. There's some really cool stuff where I think content creators are able to break outside of their niche and explore and put a different side of themselves out there as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because you have streaming platforms like Twitch, YouTube, Facebook gaming, but then you also have like Instagram Live and then going live on TikTok. And do you see those as like sub platforms for streaming? They're kind of streaming, but without maybe as many dials that you can tweak and customize. How do you distinguish those in terms of streaming
so
features?
for some content creators, it's a supporting platform, right? So as a content creator, you should not be dedicated to your platform of choice. You should not be like, I am a Twitch streamer and that's the only place I have. You won't find me on Twitter, you won't find me on Instagram. If you're doing that, you're making a very big mistake with your content. So you need to be having those supporting platforms, like whether it's just images or short videos. But the live stuff is where it's an interesting one, because if you're a partner, technically you shouldn't be doing the live stream on those platforms. But I think it's a great place to be able to engage with that separate audience. You know, Instagram audiences don't necessarily have the same audience as your Twitch audience or your YouTube audience, and very much the same as TikTok. So, as I said earlier, I've seen people massively do well because of TikTok. A good example actually is a content creator we work with here in Australia. She built her career on Twitch as a VR content creator, and just it's funny. I could probably find you the chat of me and her had on Facebook when she first started using TikTok. It was actually during a campaign that we were paying her to do, and she was like, "Oh, I might give it a go on TikTok." I know a few people that are on TikTok, but you know, I think it's just for kids, but we'll give it a go. And I was like, yeah, do it. 100% do it. It's not just for kids, but I'll let you learn that. And she blew up on TikTok. Her content blew up overnight. And she was gaining millions and millions of hits on there. But the funny thing is where it converted for her was not her Twitch. She didn't have a massive crossover to Twitch. It was actually her YouTube, which she was consistently uploading to YouTube, but wasn't going viral, wasn't getting a massive amount of followers. It was just like this slow, steady growth. But the moment her TikTok blew up, her YouTube just skyrocketed. So her sub count went through the roof. Like literally in one day in the office, we had her sub count up on the big screen as we watched it, like ticking over. Like she was gaining easily 10 subs a minute.
Surreal.
Yeah, and so it was to a point that we had her sub count on screen, able to watch it tick up. And it was purely because she'd blown up on TikTok and people were looking for her on YouTube to find her longer form content. So it's just being able to smartly use all those other platforms.
Yeah, no, it definitely sounds like you said, you don't want to be locked into one platform. And that's kind of something I want to talk to you about for a little bit. what I find, because through my experience, I've worked for clients where I've had to edit podcasts, and I worked in this kind of social media influencer marketing space for a bit, and I worked as an editor. So
Mm.
I think that's a really interesting question. Just like, I feel like there's this stage where someone's, say, streaming a few hours a night for fun, and then it maybe picks up and they're considering doing it as a full-time thing. There's this, I think, huge step where you have to create this infrastructure to be able to publish on every platform and to create square assets and rectangle assets and
Yeah,
short videos, chopping up longer videos and streams, and that's, that's a full-time job for
it
several
is
people.
definitely a full-time job. It's an interesting conversation that I literally just had with a Kiwi content creator, one of the biggest Kiwi content creators who they're big on Twitch. They're starting to build a really good following on TikTok, but he's pretty inconsistent when it comes to uploading to TikTok, when it comes to uploading to YouTube and things like that. Basically, the only things he puts out there at the moment are the things that he sees go viral from his Twitch. So things that cross over into Reddit with the Reddit community and things like that, he's able to pick up on it and go, shit, people love this, I should put it on everything else.
Yeah.
And the conversation I had with him the other day was, dude, you need to be uploading consistently to all these channels. Like, you should be uploading to TikTok every day.
Yeah.
It's not, TikTok is a platform where you need to feed that beast.
Yeah.
Right. But YouTube, you need to be uploading, even if it's just short clips, or even if it's a compilation of funny moments from the week, whatever. You should probably be uploading to that at least weekly. Instagram, getting posts out there at least twice a week. I would argue even more so than that. Not so much with doing the live streams and stuff on those two platforms. This particular person didn't need that, but I said you need to start looking at that. And he's in a lucky position where his partner knows how to do video editing and stuff like that. So he's like, yeah, my partner's actually already said willing to do it, so we're looking at doing that. But that's something that not everybody can do, right? So that's where you need to look at what are my options here. And funnily enough, a lot of these people completely forget that they've got a community.
Yeah.
They've got people there that are willing to help them do that work.
True.
So it is a matter of saying, hey, if something funny happens, make sure you clip it. Clip it for me so I can easily find it and edit it myself. Or start engaging these guys. Like, a lot of these guys are, these viewers, you'll be surprised how many of those people know how to edit a video. Hit them up and say, hey, if you guys want to do my video edits for me, I can throw you X amount of dollars. I'd love to have you on board. But that's also starting to build your team as well.
Yeah.
There's those options, but then, you can just engage someone, like you were saying yourself, you did video editing for a brand and stuff.
Yeah.
There are plenty of people out there that are willing to do this content for you for a really reasonable price as well. It's not until you start getting into the nitty gritty of like super high quality edits that you start looking at the big budgets.
Yeah.
So there's options, and I highly recommend it because, like I said, there's people out there that their careers just explode because they put in that little bit of extra effort.
Yeah.
But the other argument I'm going to make here of making sure you invest in multiple platforms is, and this is something out of my own career that happened to me, is you don't know how long these platforms are going to be around for. My wife and I started a company, this would have been about 10 years ago now, but we were content creators. We had a podcast and we started an online TV show, which now you just call it a YouTube show. But the platform that we went with is we got this really cool financial offer from a VOD hosting company that was based in Asia somewhere. They had a heap of money behind them, and they were paying us to put our content on their platform first. Once a month, they were paying us a really good amount of money to do this, and we then put it onto YouTube and stuff a week later. The problem being was that company, obviously, while they had good money behind them, they just couldn't sustain themselves as a company. A year and a half later, they went out of business.
Wow. But you did cross-platform the
But
content.
the issue, no, this is where the issue is. we did cross-platform, but didn't invest any time in promoting that cross-platform. So we were on our Twitter and Facebook and all of our other social, we were pushing hard this other platform that we had our content on. The moment that died, it took all of our data and all of our views and things like that. So we had videos on there that had like 3 million views. While that same video on YouTube had 300 views, because we were not funneling any audience over there. So it's making sure that, one, you're cross-platform, but you're not dedicating all your efforts into that one platform. And that was a big mistake that we made. And I always say to people, look, put effort into every platform you're on. Unless you're in a dedicated, like Twitch do a really good job of locking you into, you can't stream on any other platform. If you're going to put it on YouTube, it has to be, I think it's 48 hours later. But once that 48 hours is over, upload some shit onto YouTube. Push it. Make sure you're getting those views on there.
And it's free, right? Like
it's free.
So you may as well, if you've got, and it's time. It's a time commitment thing, and it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation where you're trying to build a community so that you can like afford an editor, so that you could publish more content to all platforms. And I think it's a case by case basis as well. Like maybe, like you're saying, you and your partner, maybe that's the power couple of the future, is a video editor with a streamer combo.
Definitely.
And that's but it's a case by case basis on when the timing is right. Maybe you get lucky and have that kind of viral hit first. It is really
not everybody's lucky to have the viral hit though, right? Like we see, I'm using a lot of Kiwi examples here, but Brox, right? Brox was the phenomenon of 2020, and he's just a Kiwi dude who is just a really nice guy.
Totally.
Out in his back doing Māori, and he was the right content creator at the right time. The world was stressed out, and he was just super chill, super calm, super positive. So he went viral as hell, but he backed that up, right? By capitalizing at the right time. He did make a big mistake right at the start, though, and I actually had a chat to him about it. Was he basically didn't give a shit about other people uploading his content to YouTube, which is a big thing when people go viral. Is there are people out there that will, because they want to see your content when they want to see it. So what they'll do is they take your content, upload it to YouTube so that they can share it easier. And he didn't give a shit that other people were doing it, because he was like, oh, I'm a Twitch streamer. I was like, yeah, but dude, that person's making money off your name. Like all that advertising revenue is not going to you. And at the time he was positive about it. He's Brox. And he was like, oh, I'm not bothered. I'm making good money over on Twitch. If someone else is making some money, but they're making money off your work. Your mahi. You're putting in all that hard mahi. You should be earning that.
Totally. No, that's a good piece of advice as well. And I'm sure there's a whole process to go through and take down videos that are one-to-one copying your content. And there's so many conversations we could have, even about the meme economy and people memeing and how that can help your brand, how it can hurt your brand. There's a whole conversation about that. But I do want to just keep this focused and valuable with the little time we have left, because I don't want to miss asking you this question, which I think will be a really important question for a lot of the people listening. But if someone's interested, I'd say I want to keep it to the Australasian community one, because I think that's where you have the most experience, but also that's where probably a lot of the audience listening to this are from. But what advice do you have for someone growing up in this community right now, wanting to become a streamer? What advice would you give for them wanting to take the first steps into potentially making this a career, if it's their dream job?
Okay, look, I would be remiss if I didn't say create an account on Ggwp, go through those courses, because they are valuable, right? A lot of the more granular advice that I could give is already there available for you. But my number one piece of advice, honestly, is go get yourself a streaming computer. It doesn't have to be super high spec. It just needs to be enough to get the job done. Get yourself a half decent webcam. A standard Logitech webcam is going to be enough to get started, but get started. Like, don't over plan it. And I think this is where I see a lot of people, they hit that hurdle of, I want to be a content creator, but all the people I watch is Dr. Disrespect, it's Ninja, it's all these people that have these really high quality, highly produced streams or YouTube accounts or whatever. Don't look to them as your inspiration. Look at them as your end goal.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm going to say there, and just do it. Just honestly, I've seen people start with streaming from their PlayStation and they've blown up
Mm-hmm.
because they're entertaining
Mm-hmm.
and they're fun and they engage their community. Um, Start with just a laptop, even just get started,
Yeah.
get the ball rolling, because the best way to learn something is to just get in there and get your hands dirty sometimes. And being able to make mistakes while you're small, being able to forgive yourself for making those mistakes. Um, don't expect perfection when you first start as a content creator. You're not going to be perfect. A lot of what you do is going to be inspired by other people, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you've got the ball rolling, you're going to start learning based on what you've already seen. You're going to start building that community and start building the nuances in your own sort of personality and persona. And you'll continue to take inspiration from other people, but then you'll start inspiring people as well. Um, so there's that. And the other piece of advice is be a student of your craft. And this is a rule that should be in anything that you do, right? Whether you're a content creator, whether you're a house builder, whether you're whatever, right? You should be a student of your craft. So that means if you're a content creator, you should be watching YouTube videos, looking at what other people are doing, watching people's streams, following people on Twitter and seeing what they're doing. Like I said earlier, you're not trying to be a carbon copy of other people, but you might see a small thing that another content creator is doing and say, oh, I can twist that and make that my own as well.
Mm-hmm.
We're don't be scared to be inspired by other people. Just don't try and become a carbon copy, because you will piss people off doing that, taking someone's really cool idea and saying, I'm going to do exactly that. But, be a student.
Yeah, always learn. That's what I took away from that. Is always make sure you're learning and growing, and soaking and listening to a community as well. I'm sure people will tell you if they think that you look exactly like Dr. Disrespect and you sound like him as well, and that it's not unique or fresh, and take that advice and use that to be inspired to go to a different direction.
Yeah. Well, or may even just be tweaking that character if you're going down the character route, right?
Yeah.
So, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were actually telling me the value that they've had of. They came from a background of stand-up comedy,
Mm-hmm.
and then became a Twitch streamer, and so a lot of his inspiration comes from the stand-up scene.
Mm-hmm.
And we were actually talking about it. It's like, oh shit, this is probably something a lot of content creators should start doing, is looking outside of their craft as well. So looking at what stand-up comedians do, because a lot of what they do, there's so many similarities between stand-up comedy and Twitch streaming, because you're coming up with things on the spot, while what you're doing, it may be semi-rehearsed. You're needing to work with what's happening at the time. You're working towards entertaining an audience. As a content creator, 9 times out of 10, you're not there because you're a great gamer. A lot of the amazing content creators we work with are not the best gamers in the world.
Yeah.
But what they are is entertainers.
Yeah.
And think of yourself as an entertainer. If you are an amazing gamer, chances are you need to work on the entertainment side of things. So look at that.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good piece of advice, and spoken from someone that has worked with dozens, potentially hundreds of content creators over the years, and your own personal content creation journey. One question that I want to ask before we end the show, and it kind of plays in line with people wanting to start out, is your online identity is Phid McAwesome, and that's like every content creator, well, not every content creator, but some content creators choose to have this alias, whether it's Dr. Disrespect or Ninja or
a lot of them have their pseudonym and they live by their pseudonym.
Yeah, so explain to me a bit why you made that decision, and what that decision, how that reflects for you.
Yeah, a lot of people do ask me this question, because I'm not sure if I've ever been asked on a podcast actually, but I get asked it a lot on person. It's like, why do I go by a pseudonym? And it's a funny story, because, like you said, I used to previously be a content creator, but my content creation story starts before the internet.
Uh-huh.
Not that the internet wasn't a thing at the time. It's just I started actually working in radio.
Hmm.
So when I left high school, I went and studied broadcasting and media, and I studied to be a not TV, a radio broadcaster. And my first career was radio broadcasting. And Phid McAwesome was actually my radio name.
Nice.
And that it came about actually because of my tutor, who was my mentor at the time in radio. He was notorious for giving people nicknames. Phid was already a nickname I had from high school. And then what his first nickname for me was, I think it was Phid McFid. And then everything at the time was awesome to me. I was like, oh, that's awesome, blah, 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 awesome. So he was the one who actually, he coined it as Phid McAwesome.
Nice.
And I was like, that's actually a really good name.
Hmm.
So I started using it on radio. And then sort of as my career evolved, I left radio. I went and worked in a meat factory of all things. And then when I came back to content creation, oh, actually it was not content creation, sorry. When social media started to really become a thing where you had pseudonyms along instead of your handles and stuff, it was actually Twitter was the first place where I invested in that name. I was like, right, this is my name. My name is Phid McAwesome. That was my handle. Instead of putting my real name, I put Phid McAwesome in there, and then basically everything from there, I have been Phid McAwesome.
You built your brand behind it.
Yeah, yeah. At the time, it was actually funny on Twitter. I wore a wrestling mask. I didn't show my face, so I almost went all in on the gimmick. I'm glad now I didn't, because it'd be a bit awkward going to meetings and say, "Hi, I'm Phid McAwesome," wearing a silver wrestling mask. But where it leads into me professionally is I came back to radio about 10 years ago. A friend of mine wanted to get into radio. I was looking for an excuse to get back into radio, and we pitched a show about doing a radio show all around social media and gaming and tech. And I was like, okay, what are we going to call ourselves? And I was like, oh, well, since we're covering social media and tech and stuff, I reckon we should call ourselves by our online personas. So on our show, we did not call ourselves by our real name. We only called ourselves by our online personas. And as that show built in success, so we launched it actually in Hamilton, New Zealand. It was only on Access Radio at first. And then it got broadcast nationwide. We started doing it as a podcast. We started getting international recognition. And then we actually built that podcast into it was New Zealand's first podcast network at the time.
Wow.
And as I started dipping my toe further into the journalism side of things, I was already doing marketing by day under my real name. But as I started to do the journalism side of things, I was only using the name Phid McAwesome. And I soon found out one very key thing is the three of us from the show would go to events. So whether it be a launch of a console or a game, or whether it be a launch of a new cell phone or something, after the event, the person they remembered from the three of us was the person because the other two used their real names when they go to events. I would continue to use Phid McAwesome at events. The person they remembered was the person with the weird name. Like, Phid McAwesome, is that your real name?
Interesting, yeah.
It got to the point where my wife and I almost changed our last names legally.
Wow. Oh, so you haven't legally?
We're still, the discussion comes up very regularly, and I think eventually we will, but it's just a bit complicated for us because I'm a Kiwi, she's Australian, we were married in New Zealand, and there's a whole bunch of weird things that happened after that. But where do we change our names and things like that? Do we change our kids' names as well?
I mean, I think that's an interesting conversation that may become more common as people's online identities become a lot of how they interact with the world and engage with the world. And it's interesting because you made me wonder when you're talking about the wrestling mask that you used to wear. I was wondering, does Dr. Disrespect go into meetings with his mustache and glasses on
I
when he's talking?
That. I can answer that because I have been in a meeting with Dr. Disrespect. So he does not. So he is not in character at all. I will say this about the doc, though. In real life, he is one of the nicest guys. His entire thing is a persona. I think we already know that, but sometimes you meet people and their persona is themselves turned up to 110%.
Yeah.
But he is genuinely the nicest guys, one of the most professional dudes I've ever had the experience of working with as well.
Oh, that's so cool. And
Yeah.
you've said that now on live on the podcast, but that's cool
Yeah,
to hear.
the doc's probably going to come at me now and be like, "You're ruining my reputation. I'm supposed to be a badass."
Yeah, I mean, he's tall. He's so tall, though. I'm sure even in real life, if he doesn't open his mouth, he's still intimidating to a certain
Oh
degree.
yeah. See, I'm 6'3" myself, and
Yeah,
he's over 7 foot, I think.
yeah, he's
He's a
massive.
monster. He's a
Yeah.
monster. There's people like him that make me as a tall person feel tiny.
Yeah. No, but that's cool, and I really appreciate you sharing that as well. That's kind of all we have time for. I would have loved to ask you about. Actually, I'll ask you a very quick question.
Yeah, do it.
Tell me one of the arcade systems behind you, and why it's there. How you managed to get it.
All right. So, how I managed to get them are all pretty interesting. So I have been a passionate retro video game collector probably for about 15 years. What you don't see out of shot is I've got massive wall-to-wall cupboards that are full of every console that's ever been released in Australia and New Zealand, and that's
Wow.
over years of collecting, right? I've paid for all of them out of my own cash as well. It's not one of these things where people have gone, "Oh, you're a
Wow.
fan. Here's this." Um, so that's where that sort of started. And over back when I lived in New Zealand, I also had arcade machines, and they were full size arcade machines. But moving over to Australia, I sold all of my arcade machines. I brought
Wow.
over my console, also sold my arcade machines. And I wanted to get back into having some arcade machines in the house, but the price difference between Australia and New Zealand on arcade machines is phenomenal. Whereas in
Wow.
New Zealand, you'd pay, I don't know what the price is now, but I paid like $500 for my Street Fighter machine in New Zealand. That same Street Fighter Championship Edition machine over here is worth like $2,000 or $3,000.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
the price difference is phenomenal. I was just like, well, I guess I'm never going to be an arcade guy again. But then Arcade One Up, which is a company that made these two machines that are behind me here,
Mhm.
they brought out these kit set arcade machines that you can buy and in the States you buy them at like a Best Buy or whatever. Over here I bought it at the Aldi supermarket of all things. The first one I bought there, and it would cost like $400. I was like, sweet, that fills that need. But
Yeah.
the second machine I actually got from a friend who works at Capcom.
Nice.
He said he had a spare one. He sold a spare one in his office. He sold it to me for a really good price, and I modified the shit out of it. So which is the machine right behind me here.
Yeah.
I replaced all the buttons, all the sticks, took the CPU out of it, and I've got the entire thing running on a Raspberry Pi, and I replaced the monitor. So the thing's running thousands of games on it.
Nice.
But then the pinball machine, if you have a look in the background,
Digital.
it's all digital, and I built that from scratch myself.
No way.
Yeah, built the entire thing, and that was actually a COVID project. Yep.
Oh, that's so cool.
Everybody did their own little COVID projects over the last few years, and that
Yeah.
was mine. So
You built a digital pinball machine. That's incredible.
and the entire thing's made out of junk,
Junk.
literally out of junk. So the TV screens that I use are all off the side of the road that people have literally chucked out.
No way. That's awesome.
And all the parts are all stuff that I've picked up off the side of the road or secondhand on Facebook or whatever. The entire thing's literally made out of junk, and it looks beautiful.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great collection. I'm jealous.
Well, if you ever make it over to Sydney, dude, you're welcome to come around and play some video games with me.
I appreciate it. I see some hoops there. I'll definitely shoot some hoops. For those listening on the audio only, you can go over to YouTube and look at the video to see Phid's background, which is it's inspiring. I really appreciate that you talked a bit about your story as well and how you got into just kind of your journey. And I'm glad you touched on that as well, because I was really interested in hearing the story of how you got to where you are now. So thanks for sharing that. And just thanks for sharing your advice and perspective on streaming and where it's going. I wish the best for Ggwp Academy. It sounds like it's fitting a perfect niche for a growing market. I think a lot of kids growing up, especially if they have an open line of communication with their parents about their interests and It's something that I think parents would love to explore to see if it is something that their kid does really enjoy and is passionate about. And it's just like going to your local club soccer team to play every week. It's a similar, it's a hobby. It's,
I
something
would
that,
I would almost argue that it's a safer career bet than getting into traditional sports, right?
yeah,
Because your local, what the All Blacks can only take 20 people a year
yeah,
in New Zealand,
yeah,
whereas there is an audience of millions
yeah.
on
It's,
Twitch and YouTube.
Yeah, it's a good parallel. And I think just having that conversation of if hobbies can be turned into careers is something that's new as well. It's only, a couple decades ago, people becoming content creators didn't even exist. That word didn't even exist. And now
Correct.
it's something that's very real. People that are passionate and work hard enough can make a living out of doing what they have the most fun doing and what they love. And that's almost a part of the process as well. You need to love it, and people will attach onto you if they see you're really entertaining and having a good
Yeah,
time.
definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you just so much for just sharing a lot of facts and info on streaming. I've learned a lot. So I hope those listening have learned. If you're wanting to follow Phid, you can find him on Twitter at Phid McAwesome, or reach out to GGWP and get into the cohort, and you might bump into him through that process.
Definitely.
So yeah, thanks for joining me today, and I wish you the rest of a happy rest of your day in Sydney, Australia.
Not a problem. And look, anytime you want me back, I'd love to come back and have a chat. I think we honestly could have had a 4-hour
We
podcast.
could have. We could have. Easy. So yeah, definitely. We'll get you back on. We'll talk about memes and Elon Musk and how he plays into this whole conversation.
Anytime.
And in a year's time as well, the whole landscape of this whole industry is going to be different, with some new platforms probably emerged and things like that. So
Yeah, I mean,
definitely.
if you'd interviewed me this time last year, I would have been talking about Mixer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And now it's not here anymore.
Yeah.
And Discord is another big conversation we could have talked about, but next time.
Definitely.
So yeah, thanks, Phid, and talk to you again soon.
Not a problem.
All the best. Bye.